So I'm going to give this about, let's just say a minute or something to give people the opportunity to get on the live stream. I've already done a live version of this on Facebook, but the YouTube and Facebook audiences are slightly different in terms of energy and the kind of engagement we get. So we're just giving people a little bit of time to get online and to also join the conversation. Hello, I'll be responding to comments as well. Hello, Glow. Um, and remember, I can also respond to questions on the topics that I'm sharing here, not on the basis of individual charts. Obviously, do book a session for that, but on general topics that is what I'm sharing. So, like I said, just giving a minute or two and just letting people to join the conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about this incredibly important Saturn Pluto conjunction. So, there's a couple of you on right now. Hello, Bogdan. Hello, Annie. Hello, Adrienne. Hello, Brandon. Hello, Mark. Hello, Star. Hello, Whole Soul Drumming. Hello, Ashley. There's a lot of you now. Okay, good. Okay. So I would say it's probably a good time for us to get into our topic of discussion today. So, for all of you who follow astrology, you know that there's this major badass conjunction happening right now. I mean, it's already gone exact. Saturn conjuncts Pluto, and there's a whole lot of hype around this. Okay? So, basically, Saturn is what brings us structure to reality and a three-dimensional level. It's also about how we inherit those structures and understandings of power that we have. Pluto is the energy that asks us to go really, really, really deep inside and look at the shadow of everything, whether or not we like it or whether or not we want it. And only by going into the depths can you find the riches or the horrors or both that shadow and Pluto hold. So Saturn and Pluto really come together to ask us to look at the depths of how we deal with the question of power. So that's what's happening. Now, is this going to last a day? No. We're going to be feeling this energy throughout 2020 because there are going to be a whole lot of other activations to Pluto and other alignments in the skies. So, really, this is just the initial rumble. Now, all of you have been, I mean, those of you who've been following me at the very least, you've been working towards this in your own ways. So, Capricorn's energy in this eruptive capacity is not going to be showing you things that you didn't expect. It's all going to be things that have been rumbling for a little while, and if you haven't course corrected, this is when they kind of get thrown in your face. If you look at it geologically, Puerto Rico has really been bearing the brunt of numerous earthquakes, just one after the other after the other. We also saw this major volcanic eruption in the Philippines that has required a mandatory evacuation and a tsunami warning for the area, as far as I've heard. And so the earth is really not playing games anymore. So, like I said, at a personal level, as we've been discussing for a while now, at a personal level, what you basically do is you chop wood and you carry water. You do the things that are important to help you align your everyday life in alignment with your values. What is the most important thing to you? Working from a place of fear, working from a place of anxiety, working from a place of scarcity is not at all going to help your situation. And this is Capricorn wisdom. Capricorn wisdom basically says whatever the heck comes up, you still got to walk 1 foot at a time, one leg at a time, 1 foot in front of the other. You got to take it one day at a time. You got to look at all of this stuff and says, you know what, I still got to eat, I still got to sleep, I still got to get up the next day and keep at it. That is the essence of Capricorn wisdom. So, no matter what's erupting around you, at the end of the day, it's about stripping it down to the basics of what is important and understanding that that is what you need to maintain. The other part of Capricorn wisdom is also looking at what is the legacy we want to leave behind. And because of the fact that it's a Pluto Saturn conjunction, we are breaking through dysfunctional patterns and dysfunctional ideas of legacy, whether or not we've inherited it through the family structure, through the political structure, through other ways in which we try to hold and structure power. whether it's in our professional lives, our personal lives, and certainly our relationship with the environment. I mean, Gaia has a reason to be erupting right now. So this theme is actually going to continue through 2020, and in fact, if you look at the Pluto Eris squares, also through 2021, it is no exaggeration to ask people who are living in areas which are very earthquake prone to actually make sure that they have insurance and to make sure that they are in a safe situation and a safe place, and to make sure that there is a backup plan where possible, or maybe with a group of people. So again, not gonna lie to you, you gotta have a bit more caution, especially if you're in areas where this could happen. I mean, I was not at all surprised to hear that Istanbul recently had an earthquake as well. It's just happening all around the world, and like I said, this is just Gaia getting warmed up. Now, in terms of professional life, if you have not already made a career shift, it's quite likely you'd be kicked out of what you're doing if that's not what your soul wants you to be doing. Look at what your soul wants you to do and start working towards it. Remember that success isn't exactly measured exclusively through money or prestige or what society says it's great, because you know what? Society done fucked up. That's why the world is the way it is right now, rather humanity's relationship to the world. So take a leap. Take a leap of faith in yourself. Go where your soul wants you to go. Go create what your soul wants you to create, because that's really the kind of legacy that we all need to be leaving behind right now. The other part of Pluto is that it's very much about the regenerative cycle. It's a kind of energy that asks you to go into the depths, fix what needs fixing, dissolve what needs dissolving, transmute what needs transmuting, booting out what needs booting out, and to actually allow yourself to regenerate. And part of that needs to be incorporated in terms of your daily routine. Now, Capricorn is also work, 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 but it's also play, play, play. If you are a Capricorn who is embodied, you will, in all likelihood, love to dance. There'll be some space in your life where you get your freak on. A lot of Capricorns love to dance because of that reason. It rules the root chakra. So, whatever it is, whether it's dance, whether it's laughter, whether it's pottery, whether it's making paper angels, whatever it is you like to do, you need to make room for yourselves to do that every day, because you need to replenish yourselves. I was reading this little meme. It's not even a meme, it was like a conversation that was talking about something, I think from Reddit. I was reading this, and in it they were talking about how when you feel helpless, the thing that can actually break you out of a cycle is just doing something and accomplishing something, even if it's something small, so to speak. So if you are feeling helpless, take on small tasks, take on goals you know you can achieve, even if it is knitting a sock. I mean, there's a reason why knitting and weaving are so woven into, the traditional histories of ancient civilizations and cultures. There's so much of uncertainty that people who lived in times we can't even imagine living in had to face. So this is what they did: weave, play, dance, learn a new language, play an instrument, do those little things that actually keep you inspired, alive, and engaged. Because if you feel dead inside, if you give in to hopelessness, if you give in to helplessness and anxiety, 2020 is going to be a shit year for you and everyone around you. And I don't think you can afford that. So do little things each day that make you feel joy. Now, I would say take that a step further. We live in a quantum universe. We live in a universe where our actions influence things in ways that we can't imagine and we don't understand. And so everything we do counts. It's not just about helping us survive through what humanity is going to be facing, but it's also about contributing to a legacy that is worth inheriting. And if we were to look at the larger templates of what has really damaged our relationship with the planet: human greed, human ego, colonization, patriarchy, capitalism. These are the basic components of the way that humanity has structured its existence on this planet, and why things are just so weird. And this is what we need to dismantle. And we're not going to dismantle it overnight. I'm not saying no government. I am a Capricorn, people. I like rules. I like law. I like order. Unfortunately, the systems we have kind of end up putting sociopaths in power. So we need to find different systems. They're not going to happen overnight. They're going to evolve through trial and error. They're going to evolve over time in organic processes. But the system will not change unless we actually stand up to it. I'm not asking you guys to become, I don't know, Unabombers. I'm not asking you to do that at all. I'm asking you to do real simple things. And I'll give you a concrete example. I was reading recently the story of what happened in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, where an indigenous elder and his granddaughter were handcuffed because they tried opening a savings account at a bank. A 12-year-old girl was handcuffed because the bank thought that they were doing something fraudulent, and it's ridiculous. And the police chief actually defended this action. You know what pisses me off? The thing that really pisses me off is that there would have been so many people at that bank, other employees, other patrons, other whatever. That energy of complacency, of not challenging the status quo, that energy is what keeps systems in place. If one person had opened their voice and said, what you are doing is wrong, you cannot handcuff a teenager on suspicion of fraud just because they want to open a bank account. If one person had opened their voice and just said no, this would have had a very different, this story would have played out very differently, but no one did. Everyone was complicit. So, I've been sharing that news story on my Facebook, and people have been writing. I mean, obviously other people have, but I can only tell you what I see people in my space doing. People have been writing to the bank, they've been threatening to withdraw their accounts. This is the way you make change. Trying to hold and do all of it energetically it's a different question, but literally, if you see something, say something. If you see someone perpetuating, okay, you know what? I'm going to have to address Lee's comment here. Giving of yourself does not change the evil of this world. Shut up. Honestly, shut up. I'm referring to one of the comments here. If you think that you cannot make a change, go and sit and live in your life somewhere in a tiny little room and do not watch my channel. Because this is a waste of your time and mine. You can make a difference by using your voice, by opening your mouth, by speaking truth where it is needed. If you see a child being arrested for no reason, use your voice. Especially if you are a white person in Canada and the US, use your voice. Take an image, capture it, live stream it, get evidence, help people. Help people. And that is what all of us are asked to do. Because if you don't believe in your capacity to do that, man, what are you doing here? Why are you listening to me of all people? And as for New Hope, do you believe you can make an entire family that has estranged you? Honey, I'm not talking about your families. I'm talking about you. All you can do is be responsible for yourself and what energy you choose to bring. So if you want to wallow in self-pity, do it, but don't do it on my time. Every one of you is an agent of change. Every one of you is an agent of divine, you want to call it blessing, you want to call it purpose, you want to call it whatever. Every one of you is here for a purpose. If your purpose is to wallow, go do that. Don't ask me questions. If your purpose here is to actually do something, then get out and do that, because every time you open your mouth, every time you hold someone who is corrupt accountable, you make it less likely. Now, for all the people who want to do, oh, I'm sorry, this is a fact, the system is what it is, the civil rights movement happened. Women got the right to vote. Black people got the right to vote. If you're telling me that people never achieved anything, then no one would even be sitting here. So please, unless you want to ignore all of history and all of political protests, you be my guest. But if you want to look at facts, people, and I'm responding to comments here, look at the facts and look at how humanity has pushed back against the rising tide of conservatism. There's a lot that we can do. We are here. We are the change that we've been waiting for. There ain't going to be aliens coming down. They probably took one look at our planet going, oh my God, no. So this is what we have right now. Every one of us has the ability to make a change. And this is the energy of the now. You want to get caught in the fear of it? It's up to you. You want to get You want to use this energy to be present, that is also up to you. And as for the person who's writing about how many times they got handcuffed, again, look at the history of social movements. Every major political leader had that experience. It's not easy, it's not comfortable. A change is not going to be comfortable. And that is the truth of it. So yeah, I think I think I've already explained myself enough. Now I want to move to a separate topic, which is what we need to do in terms of a spiritual work and in terms of a spiritual practice. What happens here when we try to address Saturn and Pluto and everything and so on and so forth? What happens here is that people get really excited about the energy of this alignment. And what happens here is that they kind of try to overdo it. At the end of the day, we as individuals need to take a stand for what is real, what is raw, and what is true for all of us. That's what we as individuals need to do. And I have been spending my day doing prayers where prayers are needed. I have been helping as many people as I can. I have been doing things that are important for me. And I have also been addressing some of the God, okay. Right now, I'm kind of pissed off at the fact I can see some of these comments because seriously, some people really don't want to get this in their heads. Look, you want to live in fear based conditioning, I'm not the right person to listen to. Take that energy elsewhere to people who want to wallow in self pity. This is not the space for it, and I'm not going to address it anymore. If you want to work with the energy of the now at a spiritual perspective, listen to the earth. Listen to the earth and what the earth needs. The problem is people are trying to do energy work and energy healing in ways that are still very much based on old paradigms and old ideas of earth energies and earth ley lines and chakras and whatever, whatever, whatever. The point is we're actually shifting into a new age. So a lot of what we took as metaphysical knowledge 2,500 years ago doesn't exactly work so well right now. So if you are being called to kind of walk on your own beat, do that. If you are being called to just listen to the earth and see what the earth wants you to do that. But what I would say is do be very, very critical of how do I put it? Do be very, very critical of figures who use power, who use authority, who use old knowledge to try and control you to do certain things. One of the things that I've been doing today is speaking up against the need to be very, very circumspect and discerning with this thing that's going around in metaphysical circles about what's going on at Uluru, or rather, I should say, Ayers Rock. There's this whole type of energy that's all about star seeds. You got to put your energy there. Star seeds, you got to do this. There's a big Aboriginal ceremony happening there. You know what? There is no major ceremony happening there today. People are being misled by others who have their own agendas about the way we need to actually live our lives in harmony with Earth. So I did a whole lot of digging and I found out there was one private event that happened and linked up with other spaces, but in no way was it this big hyped up collective event that people were sharing around and doing. There was no evidence for that. In fact, I even wrote to the board of management asking them to make a public statement on whether or not this information was approved by the traditional owners of the land. And that is part and parcel of the work that we also have to do when we are working with this Saturn/Plutonian energy. Just because you can put your energy somewhere does not mean that you should. Part of the reason why we are in this mess right now is because we did not respect the rights of indigenous people. Indigenous people had their land stolen from them. So even if it's in the name of light working, even if it's in the name of the greater good, even if it's the name of the spirituality, why not actually just ask traditional or indigenous people permission before trying to access their sacred lands? Why use their mythologies to actually perpetuate New Age circles and New Age myths? That is completely disrespectful. So, this is one of those things which I've been spending my time doing today, because really when New Age spiritualists try to use old energy, where they try to use energy of ancient civilizations, ancient techniques, ancient structures without consent, you actually end up recreating a colonization of spiritual practices. And that's what I've been using my energy to speak up against today, because to me, this is very important. If you're going to create a new energy system with the planet, do not repeat the same mistake the colonizers did. Do not try to walk on their lands without their consent. Do not take their name without their consent. Do not represent their traditions, without their consent. It just doesn't work. And yet I see people are uncritically doing this. And this is really not what you want to do on the day of the Saturn Pluto conjunction. If you are working on sacred land, you get the permission of the people of that land. Otherwise, it's going to kick you in the ass. There's no two ways about it. It is just going to kick you in the ass. And, one of the people who was spreading around this nonsense, and I call it nonsense because what they did was they actually took the name of the 13 indigenous grandmothers, claiming that they would be there. And the grandmothers wrote back going, we have no, we're not even here. Literally, they appropriated the name of the grandmothers to try and give legitimacy to whatever they were doing. And so when called out on it, I wrote a post about this. Someone gave me that info. I updated my post, and then someone else read it, challenged the person who was posting it. They got triggered, blocked that person, and then finally deleted it, probably to avoid accountability. If you do not, if that's the thing, the moment you actually start to ask questions in a social media age, people have to respond. And if they don't, it's their reputation on the line. So I've been doing my best to raise awareness and to get people to ask these questions. There is no point of you talking about advanced spirituality when you can't even respect a person's land. And somehow this idea is still weaving its way into the collective in a very, very slow pace. I mean, how is it that difficult to understand that you need to respect a person's traditions in a way that is actually meaningful? Why is it so difficult to understand this? I don't get it. Then again, I'm not a white person. Um, and hopefully I don't have to go through that soul experience. But effectively, this is the kind of energy of discernment that we need to bring. You want to help? Help. But do so in a way that isn't about you. Do so in a way that's more about the people or the land that you want to help, and let them speak for themselves. Because you know what? Everyone got their own voice. Everyone got their own voice, they got their own intelligence, they got their own culture, and nobody gets lesser by respecting that. Let me turn a little bit to the astrology, because you know why all of this is coming out? We have Saturn and Pluto, yes, the sun's about to conjunct them and bring up a whole lot of stuff. We also have Mercury and Ceres in the area as well. But all of these fellas are squaring Eris and Aries. And that's the wild card, because Eris is all about inclusion. If Eris is not included, she will burn you down. You want to know why the earth's on fire? You look at Eris. We are not including the right voices that we need to be including. I mean, I didn't even want to talk about this, but the more Aboriginal people I asked who have networks, who didn't say, were like, really, this is happening? I have no idea. What are you talking about? And the more people kept sending me these links, I just kind of went, you know what? I ain't speaking for them, but I gotta tell people that I'm not participating in this because the information was not clear to me. And in fact, I've been hearing back from people going with big question marks, going, oh my God, why did I not ask those questions? So at the very least, it's created some kind of an awareness. Good enough. As long as people can take that iota to ask themselves, is this legit? Did I fact check? Do I have the right to participate in this? Is this okay? Then that in itself is a big contribution. But let me get back to Eris. Eris squaring Saturn and Pluto means that the transformation society is going to undergo is probably going to be a very, very chaotic one. So it is actually best to try and circumvent Erisian energies by making sure that all the correct stakeholders are there. Eris basically leads, she basically causes the Trojan War because she doesn't get invited to a wedding. The proportionality and level of overkill there is quite extreme. But if people just kind of found a way to manage the situation in the first place, she wouldn't actually have gone to that extreme. And that's the way I would actually say you need to manage this Saturn and Pluto eruption. Try and address the injustices that need to be met before they whack you on the head so that you recognize them, be it at a personal level, be it at a collective level, and so on and so forth. Now, sometimes people cannot be included in your space because they are just narcissistic parasites. I completely understand that. But that was not Eris's problem. So when we're talking about things like racism, sexism, transphobia, we're talking about issues that just discriminate on a person on the basis of the fact that they exist and they don't fit the heteronormative norm. And we're talking about that kind of an exclusion. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have boundaries. Another thing that's aspecting the Capricorn conjunction is, of course, Therius at 21 degrees Leo, who is the hunter stalker. And this is really where we need to be very careful with our egos. We need to make sure that our egos are not a back door for power plays and control, because the ego gets very invested in what it knows. And it's, if there is anything that I have learned through my journey, is that the moment you think that you know something, you're screwed. If you think you've learned something, if you think you've mastered something, if you think you're an expert on something, you are totally screwed. I think it's called the, God, I know Diane Kruger is an actress, but in my head, that's how it is, the Diane Kruger effect, but it's probably the Donning-Kruger effect or some effect. But there is an effect that basically talks about how when a person starts out learning something, they have a high level of certainty, but they don't actually have a high level of understanding of complexity. And the more they actually learn, the more they realize they can't actually be that certain about things. Because the more you learn, the less able you are to stick to a single narrative and say, this is truth and this is reality. Anyone who is telling you that about anything, do ask questions. To what extent have they done the research? Have they, Dunning-Kruger, thank you so much. It's not Diane Kruger. I know. But in my head, Diane Kruger keeps coming up. Dunning-Kruger, thank you. So, this is the kind of energy that asks you to really be circumspect about what you think you know and what kind of leadership you're running. Because we've also got Narcissus at 25 degrees Leo, who is also in conjuncting the Capricorn alignment. This is where we really need to look at whether or not our attachment to our roles, whether it's leader, savior, whatever, is actually clouding our judgment. And that's another really important part of this Capricorn alignment. In fact, this Capricorn alignment also sextiles a body known as Boracity. Boracity is an energy which I very strongly associate with the false light that is in Pisces. I think 26 degrees Pisces right now, if I'm not mistaken. But effectively, this is an energy that also says that there's going to be a lot of misinformation surrounding the types of power we think we have access to at this time. So we need to question. We need to keep our eyes open. We need to stay open to asking those questions. Do I really know what I think I know? What am I not seeing? And if you feel really certain in your truth and reality, what I would say is dig more, dig deeper, dig even deeper. And then eventually, I think most people come to the place where they realize this is all that can be known, in that this is what we realize we don't know, and this is what we actually know. And I think once you're actually there, you're probably a lot closer to spirit than most people who think that they know everything. I certainly do not fit into that category because spirit does not give me the luxury of that. But yeah, I would say that those are the key alignments and the key types of challenges that, someone wants to know how to spell Boracity. Borasisi. That's how you spell it. I think that's probably the basic gist of the energy right now. As long as you remember these lessons, stay humble, keep your ear to the ground. Now, when I say humble, I'm not talking about false humility, okay? I'm not saying you have to sound nice and not raise your voice. No, raise your voice, raise it to the roof if you got to. But humility means you lead from your heart and you listen to the ground. It means that you don't lead from your head and you don't lead from some top-down idea of what you think you should be doing to the planet. Let the planet inspire you. Let your heart inspire you. Let the wisdom of children inspire you. That's the kind of leadership we need right now. So as long as you can keep this in mind, 2020, whilst it won't be a walk in the park, would be a lot easier to manage. In fact, we're going to be seeing more activity on January the 16th, Universal Time, when we see Saturn squaring Eris as well. That's another day of quite a bit of volatility, be it in politics, be it in mountains, be it in, geography and geopolitics generally. So, this is not going to fade away. If we were to look at the Pluto Eris squares 2019, 2020, 2021, there's still a whole bunch of triggering that we need to do. And rather than going through that process, let's just put our prejudices aside and listen to the people who have not been listened to sufficiently. But yeah, I'd say that's about it. Does anyone have any other general questions that I can help with? Are we all good? I'll give you a couple of seconds to figure it out. Okay, someone says yes. You're welcome. You're most welcome. Any other questions that I can help with right now? Giving you guys a bit of time. Uranus advice. Okay. Right. Uranus advice. Now, Uranus has recently stationed direct in Taurus. Okay. Oh, on a side note. Okay. Right. Oh, there are questions. Hang on. Hang on. Okay. Okay, Bogdan, I'm reading your comments, but I'm not quite sure what the question is. So if you could rephrase your question so I can read it real quick, that would be great. Uranus advice, Faith. Okay, Uranus advice, I would say, again, the most important thing is keep your ear to the ground. What I would say about people who are earth working, who are walking the land, the earth changes. What we think we know about the earth chakras and ley lines from personal experience, I can tell you, at the very least, due to human intervention, things do not look like the map that is traditionally given to people. And the earth is its own organic consciousness. It's not going to stay exactly the same. If the magnetic field is shifting as it has, do you really think the ley lines are going to stay the same? So, listen to the earth and look at its changes. That's what I would say. Anybody else? Okay, is my astrology sidereal, tropical, or both? Neither, to be honest. I would say my reference point is tropical astrology, but the way I feel each alignment is probably neither. Okay, let's see. How is the South Node functioning in this happening? This is an excellent question. Basically, Jupiter is opposed to South Node right now. Wait, thinks about it. Hang on. Sorry, no. Jupiter is conjunct the South Node right now. It's opposed to North Node, obviously. The North Node is in Cancer. Jupiter and the South Node are in Capricorn. Effectively, this is showing us the sum of the path that we've walked on. The teachers that we're following, the ideas that we're holding on to, this kind of shows the sum of the path that everyone is taking. So whatever you're doing right now, you set the seeds of this about 18 years ago in terms of the way you see reality and what you think needs to happen. Some of you can actually find a windfall coming through teachers, coming through particular paths that you've chosen to take. And for others, if they've chosen paths that are not in line with their spirit, they will get the boot in the bum that they need to get back on the right track. Astrological insight on the weather. I'm sorry, Jeffrey, that's a bit too general for me to answer, but what I can tell you is we are more likely to see extreme weather because I think the planet is going to be giving us more and more messages if we don't, listen. Okay, how about unemployed cancers? That's a very specific question. I would actually say look at what kind of work brings you to a sense of home, to a sense of comfort, and try and find a job in that way. Comfort may be food, comfort may be home interior, comfort may be working in a land or by the ocean. Try and redirect your job efforts to something that can actually make you feel at home. Bogdan, here we go. How do you go about rewiring patriarchal structures that are attached indissolubly to spiritual tradition? This is a extraordinary question. Thank you so much, Bogdan. And you mean on a personal level? It means, for me at the very least, that I can only answer this question in a personal way. I've gone and explored many different traditions and many different lands because that has been my path. I've basically gone with, if I cannot connect to the pure energy of a tradition, I don't compromise. I just go, you know what, this is not for me. And what I try to do is I try to find a relationship with source that goes beyond any one particular tradition, and this is what works for me. Ultimately, sometimes it's a mixture of different traditions because different guides may present themselves to me, and over time I decide whether or not I want to work with them. But ultimately, I guess for me, spirit is beyond tradition. So as long as I remember that difference, that particular question does not matter to me as much. But every soul is different. Beloved of God says priests and politicians are the same mafia. Yeah, I can understand that. JNSA, I really wouldn't know how you're going to be at this time period. Please get a reading. Let's see. Joyous day, Galactic Center, current influence, lots of feminine archetypes, lots of feminine energies coming through, and it's a time to rewrite our relationship with the feminine. I cover that more in my Tier 23 program. Vonda, yes, yes, I totally talked about the Philippine volcano. Anything else? Yes, Vonda, I did mention this before. How do we better support children's, okay, this is from Star. How do we better support children's voice and autonomy on a more spiritual capacity? Listen to them. They have an innate compass. Honor that compass. This conjunction is on my Mars exact in the seventh house. What can I expect? Look at partnerships that are coming your way. Whether it's personal partnership, whether it's a professional partnership, look at it that's coming your way. How can we donate during you live? Oh, you want to contribute to me? Oh, okay, thank you. I can put a link, but the easiest thing for you, if you want to contribute to me, and thank you so much for the question because all of this takes energy. The easiest way to contribute to me is www.paypal.me, that's me, slash the Sky Priestess. That's it. www.paypal.me slash the Sky Priestess. One word. Okay, so Bogdan says to work coherently through tradition. Um, Again, Bogdan, there's a difference between being a priest and there's a difference between being a mystic. A mystic realizes that the tradition is basically the garb that they need to throw off before they find God. God is beyond tradition, but that's what I think. But in terms of astrology, that's the difference between Sagittarius and Pisces. L.S. Cherry asks, what will happen to those who continue in patriarchal and controlling patterns? Well, we have the opportunity to make this shift. And if we don't make the shift happen, the other team's going to win. So the thing is, we need to give them a pushback. Otherwise, I do think the earth is just going to go reset, and let's not push her that far. Never, 10th house, no clue what's going on. That is okay. Let things sort themselves out. Speak to this in my first and Cap rising Cancer moon. Speak to this in my first and seventh. You know what, Wadsworth? Get a reading. Divine relationship alchemy. How does this conjunction affect those with Saturn returns this year? Basically, for those with Saturn returns, really you're in a position where you really get a chance to make a huge impact. You need to look at the road you are taking, you need to look at the path that you've been walking on, and you need to follow that path, and you need to believe that what you are building is not just for yourself. It's actually for a much, much larger long-term sense of a generation. And I'm answering this particular question because this is something that has a collective influence. Um, Bogdan, really, I'm not sure. The more you look at the writings of the mystics, the more you realize they kind of decided to just abandon tradition and go find God in their own way. I mean, I can refer some sources to you if you want to read that, but the more you get alive about God, the less you actually have to do with the boxes they try to put him or her then. Ellis Cherry, what do you mean by reset? Honestly, given the rate of the planet, uh, the planet might make itself inhospitable for humans if we don't actually get a grasp on what's happening. Wadsworth, no, you didn't mean to offend. Don't worry about it. I just got to be direct. Amber, thank you for your first fierce love. No worries. Star, you are most welcome, and you have a wonderful day yourself. Yeah, I would say that's about it. I think I've covered the basic themes. Like I said, for very personal questions, do get yourself readings because really you got to look at the whole chart, okay? Um, but yeah, I would say that's it. So keep this information in mind. I'll be back with more live videos because I think this is actually better. I put too much pressure on myself when I do the recorded videos, and the live ones are actually a lot more powerful, I would say. But yeah, that's about it. You take care. Lots of love to everybody. Stay the course. Respect yourselves, respect your facilitators, respect the work, and respect the earth. The more respect you give and the more work you do, the better the world is for everybody. So that's about it. Ciao, ciao for now. Lots and lots of love. Bye bye.